We're going to be making homemade clay out of most of the materials you should be able to find at home. To begin, materials that you will need, you'll need a spatula, you'll need a saucepan, water, whether you want it from filtered water or you want it from the kitchen sink. It's all about personal choice. You also need a half cup measuring, 2/3 cup measuring, as well as 1 cup measuring. And then optional, again, I'll repeat myself, you can use different colors glitter, which I use personally. You can use paint, markers, Kool-Aid, food coloring, whatever you want once it's dry so it doesn't burn your hands. But to begin, we will start with your cup, and we will use 2 cups of salt. Whatever salt you use, I use Morton salt, so we're going to start with that. Pour it in. You're going to do 1 cup to begin with, level it out. So I have my first cup. I'm going to go ahead, just pour it all into the saucepan. I'm going to do my second cup. So we'll do the 2 cups, and then you're going to use your 2/3 cup. This is regular temperature water. The next amount of water we're going to use is going to be a half a cup of water, and that is going to be chilled water. So you pour that in with the salt, the 2 cups of salt, pour it in, and then you're going to want to have your stove to a slightly above medium heat. So I'm letting the stove to about a medium heat right now, and we're going to want to stir it for about 4 to 5 minutes, and you want it to come into kind of like a slushy melted ice material. So we'll do this to 4 to 5 minutes, and you can kind of tell, I'll show you, if the water is evaporating from the heat, you can kind of tell that it's ready at that point. So I'm going to do a couple more spins and turns, sift it around, and then put your spatula down. You can also wear gloves if that makes you more comfortable, because it's kind of a messy process. But if you want, so see how the water's kind of evaporating and it's turning into that slushy material, that consistency where the salt is kind of melting in with the water as the heat is heating up a little bit. We'll do that for a little bit, 4 to 5 minutes. And then what we'll do is turn off the stove for safety again. You don't want to leave the stove running if nothing's on top of it. Sift it around a little bit because it has that nice consistency. And then at that point, you can take whatever kind of cornstarch you want. I don't care what brand you buy, what material, it's all the same really. And then you are going to want to add your 1 cup of cornstarch. You'll see the 1 cup marking. Most of the time you'll have it on the actual cup, whatever measurement it has. You'll add 1 cup, sift it around again, make sure you get that full amount, right? A little bit. You can also do this over the sink or wherever you're most comfortable. I'm kind of being a mess right now, so I'll clean up my own mess myself. But you do that whole process. Then you're going to want to add it in off the heat, off the stove. You'll add in that 1 cup of cornstarch, right? I kind of spread it around a little bit so it doesn't get so clumpy. And then at that point, you can also throw your dishes into the sink because I'm going to have to wash everything anyway, right? So then you're going to take your half cup, right? At this point, I'm not going to use the filtered water I previously used, but I'm going to use the cold sink water from the sink here because it asks for cold water to cool everything down. But you're going to use half a cup of cold water, pour that into everything, that you've started with, you're going to mix it until it's smooth. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to mix everything around until it's smooth, and all the ingredients that we previously used is all smooth material. So that's what I'm currently doing. I'll show you the video. I'll turn the camera once I get to the consistency that you'll probably want to have your final result. So we'll continue to do this. You don't want any chunks or anything because it's going to mess with your final product of the actual homemade clay. But it's cool because after you have your final product, you can put it into a bag and have it stay moisturized, and you can use it for the next few days. It doesn't last too long, but you can use it for the next few days. And then you can put, again, different types of colors and play with it. You can play with your family, siblings, whatever, in comparison to Play-Doh, of course. But it's nice because you don't have to go out and spend a bunch of money because you can find all these products at home. So I'll show you. You want the smooth material, and this is what you'll have after mixing it. See how most of the chunks are out? I have one little one there. I'll probably spin it around for a little bit longer, but this is what you're going to want to do in order to get the best results. So at this point, once you get all those chunks out, the little clumps that you can see with your eyes, let's do that. And then this is where you want to turn back on the oven because we turned it off for safety. So we'll turn back on the oven, the stovetop more so, and we'll do light it. And then we'll do to like kind of a medium heat of it. And so to go from there, it won't take too long. It will take a couple minutes or so, but you'll start to see the consistency get more thick and clumpy. And what I like to do is I push the thickness and clumpiness over to an opposing side of the liquidized material, but you'll start to get it see more clumpy, right? And then at that point, you know that you're close to having your final product. See, it starts to thicken. And so once I see that, I know it's not instructed on the internet, but I turn the heat down a little bit. So I start to push everything to one side of the pan. So I'm going to put all the more thick clumps over to one side, and then I'm going to leave the more liquidized stuff on the other side. So again, see how my clumps are getting thicker and thicker, get more and more. And again, if you want to wear gloves, you can wear gloves for this because I know it's kind of a messy process if you're using Kool-Aid, powder, or food dye or glitter. Personally, not a fan of glitter because it gets everywhere, but to each their own. It's all your own personal opinion, whatever you want your clay to look like. So my clay is done. It's all thickened. Again, that's why I use this type of spatula because I don't want to ruin any like non-stick pan, or if you don't have a non-stick pan, that's more than okay. It's just going to take a little bit longer to clean. So I do that, put all that in, and I don't want anyone to burn themselves. So again, I turned off the stovetop. I'm just mixing it around to make sure it's all together. I'm going to take my old mold clay out of the bowl that I provided myself. You can always do it in the pan too. You don't need an extra bowl. So I'm taking my old mold clay out. I'm going to set it aside. And then I just have your typical home bowl. I'm going to go ahead and put my new clay in that bowl. Scoop it out right inside. It's still warm. Sorry for the clump. It's still warm, so it takes a sec. But then you're going to want to allow it like a minute or two to cool down. I don't want anyone to burn themselves because it's still hot. It just came off the stove. I don't want anyone to burn themselves. But if you want, the thing that I learned that you can do is, say you have your Kool-Aid powder or you have food coloring and you don't want to separate the clay at this point, you can always take the Kool-Aid powder or the glitter and you can add that to the clay as it's cooling, so you don't have to wait to do that. I'm gonna go ahead because I like everything, so I'm gonna just add a bunch of it, because as you turn it into itself and fold the clay, the glitter kind of disappears, so you kind of want to add a little extra if you want it to be colorful. So I'm adding red in now. My first color choice was gold, so I'm adding red in now. Red's done. Now I'm going to add green. And that's a bunch of green in. Do that. You can also add to the sides of the bowl, because I noticed once you use your hands to mesh it into each other, it doesn't show up as much. Then you can roll the clay along the edges and gather all that extra glitter, or, you know, food dye or Kool-Aid coloring, whatever you want. So I'm adding purple in now. And after you're adding everything in, it should be chilled enough for you to actually put your bare hands on it. If you didn't wear gloves, if you wore gloves, even safer for you. So I'm adding silver in now. A little bit of silver into it. Again, I'm putting it on the sides. Get that extra glitter in. Make it more colorful for everyone. And lastly, but not least, we're going to do blue. So I'm adding blue in now. And again, personal preference. If you don't want it too colorful, add less. If you want it super colorful, add more. If you want to be in the medium, add just the right amount. Okay, so now it's cool enough for me to grab. So I am going to mush it all along together. You can start to see the colors take their own place within the clay. And then you see all the extra. Now I'm just going to roll it around on the bottom as well as along the sides of the bowl to gather all the extra. So that's what we're going to do. And again, I'm just using glitter. You're more than welcome to use food coloring, Kool-Aid packets. I'm sure there's a bunch of else extra you can choose from. That's just what I have learned. I'm sure that everyone else with an imagination could do more. But yeah, so this is, and then after your final product is done, after you make it, this is what it will only look like with glitter. I'm sure food coloring would be much better. I could add more glitter into it so it's not as bland. So it looks similar to, actually there's more glitter in this one, but it looks similar to the one I made yesterday. If you want to save it for longer, you put it in a plastic bag afterwards, so it saves that moisturizer so it doesn't dry up from the oxygen. And then you can reuse it. So you can make whatever you want that day. The next day, if you want to take everything apart and reuse it, just make sure you store it in a plastic bag. And then at that point, I've even read that you can add food coloring if you decide to change your mind. So you can separate it in different bags if you want to say, hey, I like this final product, I'm going to save this, but I want to do something else to this. You can make numbers. You can study your colors. I want to dye this piece orange. I know this is orange, but I want to dye this piece purple, so I know it's purple. But again, so that is how you make homemade clay. You can find anything in the house. There's also an oily clay you can make if you want to research that and look at that online. But I thought this was very good for texture, colors. You can make animals, different shapes, again, a snowman, whatever you want to do. But if anyone is interested, that is how you make homemade clay. Anyway, that's what I did.